Hi, welcome in. I'm Passion, otherwise known as Passion's Planet. This is B, who I want to be, finding identity in gaming. This is a panel where we talk about, well, finding identity in gaming. Um, I'm Passion's Planet, as I said. I'm a trans variety streamer. I do a lot of DJing, a lot of like digital drag events, just general events as a whole. And we get into Y2K games on my channel. And I am also joined by my co-host, Project Ruby. Hello.
Hello, it's so good to be here. So good to be doing this panel with you. Yeah, very exciting to talk about a topic that I feel like all of us have a lot to say on finding identity in gaming and all the shenanigans we may have been up to in order to find our identity in gaming. But yeah, take it away, Passion. Thank you for having me as your co host on this day.
The concept for finding identity in gaming is finding identity. But yeah, we have a lovely, delicious array of streamers and overall content creators joining us today. Feel free to just introduce yourselves, what you do on the channel, how you identify. Just, yeah, feel free to go ahead. We'll start with you, Nikki.
Hi everyone, my name is Nikki Mirage. I stream on twitch.tv/Queen Nikki Mirage 3 days a week, and I do a lot of horror games and variety horror. I play more than just horror, but it's a lot of like indie horror games and like maybe some AAA horror games. It's horror games. That's what I do. But I stream 3 days a week. I do drag 2 of those days, and I have been doing drag for approximately 8.5 years, and I've been gaming since birth. No, not birth, but very young age. um, and I identify out of sight of drag and in my everyday life as a cisgender gay man. And my pronouns out of drag, I go by any pronouns because I don't really care pronoun usage for me because and in drag I go by she they. So that is my identity.
Okay, sweet. And then we'll just roll down to Luke. If we just go downwards and then
Yeah,
across.
absolutely. My name is Luke Boogie. You can find me at twitch.tv/Luke Boogie on Twitch, Monday through Thursday at 1:30 UK time onwards. I identify as a non-binary demisexual. My pronouns are they, them. And yeah, that's pretty much me. I'll say it for the time.
Okay, sexy. Diana.
Hi everybody, my name is Miss Diana Hull. I'm a Latinx non-binary drag artist on Twitch. I identify as non-binary in both in and out of drag. My pronouns in drag are she, they, out of drag. I prefer any pronouns. I like to exist both in and out of everything. So anything is fine with me.
Okay. And then Jess. Feel free to introduce yourself too.
Oh. Hi, I'm Jess, also known as J-Town Holler on Twitch and all the other socials. I'm mostly a simmer. We play The Sims on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then on Mondays we try and play a scary game. I am my pronouns are she, her. I'm a black, queer, disabled, British babe. Just kind of bringing like comfy, cozy, but also like chaos. We're very sex positive. We talk that freaky nasty every day. And we just, have a good time.
Okay, nice. I didn't actually say my own pronouns, which are she, her. Ruby, did you cover yours?
I surely did not. My pronouns are they, them.
Okay, well, thank you, Guess, for remembering before us. And the first thing I want to hit off right off the bat is kind of getting into specific games that we remember for being monumental for finding identity, or just a little bit of what we kind of stuck our fingers into for the first time. I kind of went, wait a minute, to kind of games. I know for me, I kind of got off playing a lot of fighting games like Tekken and playing a lot of the female characters and that, a lot of like Tekken 2, Tekken 3 era, and picking a lot of the female characters, kind of getting off from loving that sort of energy. If anybody else kind of has a game that springs to mind, feel free to.
Oh, for me, Tekken for sure. A lot of those fighting games, in fact, at the time I didn't really have the awareness of like why I liked looking at the male characters or why I gravitated towards playing as the female characters or like the creatures, and not necessarily, a gendered moment. And then as an adult or as you're finding your identity, kind of having that realization of like, I didn't think they were cool. I wanted to fuck them.
All right,
Yeah.
we're just going there immediately.
Immediately. Listen, someone has to break the seal. It might as well be me.
Okay, so if we're going that, Steve Fox, Tekken 4, the Australian boxer. Oh, the flavour.
Bastion's got a list.
Yeah, we're not going
Can
to
I
go
just-
right into the raw dogging. Go ahead, Luke.
Can I double check? So this is it's finding identity in gaming, but there is a distinction between your gender identity and like how you identify like what genders you're attracted to. Are we covering both of those aspects
Kind of
or purely
anything,
identity?
truthfully. Yeah, just
Okay.
to like counter explain, it's just more. It can be gender, it can be weight, it can be, even just anything. Truthfully, it's just like seeing yourself as like a black person, as a fat person, as like a trans person. Even as a little gay boy, if we have to cover that. Although I'm sure there's more out there for representation than there is for other minorities. But yeah, just anything.
No, thank you. I just wanted to double check.
Yeah, it's
No,
fine.
because I remember growing up also looking at certain characters, but from a young age, because I'm from a family who's like all in fitness. I thought that I just admired these people and wanted to be a big strong person like these men in my games, and then I became a big strong person. I'm like, no, actually, I don't want this. Like, there are some days where I look at myself and be like, I don't want to be a big strong person. I want to be small and petite. But now I realize that I just wanted to get to know them a little more. Like, maybe just do it for a drink. Maybe they can give me a coffee.
All right. Were there any like specific games that spring to mind of that kind of representation?
I mean,
Yeah.
you can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I guess an early game seeing stuff like that would be like The Sims and like The Sims 2. Because you get to control those storylines and make those characters, and you can make yourself literally in The Sims if you wanted to. So, and then you can use The Sims to explore. Well, what if I got married to a man instead of yeah? So things like that are some earlier, I guess, representation and ways to find identity through video games would be like The Sims for me.
Yeah,
Did anyone
easily.
else have that sim moment where you are exploring things, but the sweat's dripping off your body, and you're waiting for creaks outside your door so you can like tab out of like, oh, I was just seeing what it was like.
Yeah.
Just once to see if it would let me do it.
Or the build up to like pressing the button and trying to get to the woohoo stage, and you're just like cracking through, and
The
you just want to reach it
adrenaline.
Yeah, the adrenaline, correct.
I think for
Jess?
me, an early because I wasn't always a gamer. I literally would have to like wait for my older brother to go out and like use his PlayStation. But GTA 3, picking up a prostitute. We are very sex positive here, so picking up the girls, get in my car. That's all I would do is drive around looking for hookers. It was gorgeous. I loved it. Of course, I killed them after, but that's just like, kids will be kids. I needed my money back. Right. But
That's
just watching
GTA.
that car rocking, and you're looking on the camera like, I don't see
Yeah,
shit.
hoping.
I think you turn in the camera just to get like a sliver
Yeah.
of crack on the side of your screen.
You're right. You want the Rose from Titanic handprint and smear. That's what I was looking for.
The
I wasn't
window's
getting
getting steamy.
Yes.
Same with The Sims when you're like looking, like trying to zoom in and like see through the pixelated.
Yeah.
You talking about the handprint just unlocked a memory for me of another game, which was one of my early experiences, I guess, with like gay romance in video games. And that was Dragon Age Origins when I was still very closeted in high school. And I was like, I'm going to go do it with Liliana, or because I was playing a male character, I'm going to do it with Liliana or Morgan. And then I ended up messing with Zevron. And I was like, wait, why do I like this? So I guess that just kind of unlocked that memory for me, just talking about like handprints, because that Dragon Age Origins has some very interesting love scenes in it. So
Ooh.
Diana, is there anything that springs to mind for you for like first kind of?
So for first, I'm gonna bring it back to The Sims, but not like the PC Sims. I'm talking like the DS My Sims, the ones where they're like little like cubes characters. Because it was like I remember specifically the first one was on the Wii that I ever played. And I was like, wow, I really like that really like goth person. And then I was like, wait, but I remember being like, I was like 12. I was like, wait, are they like, what are they? and I was like, wait a minute, I don't care. Like, they're cool. Like, I just want to be with them. And then I was like, wait a minute, why do I want to be with all of these people? Like, remember there was one person. There was like another, like, he was like a vampire, kind of like the Dracula character. And I was like, how you doing? I was like, let me get I like a little goth every now and then. I was like, that was like my precursor to like, I think like the actual like Bella Goth and all the Goth family from The Sims. I'm like, well, maybe I forgot what the dad's name was, but I was like,
Mortimer.
Mortimer. I was like, you know what? Yeah, he's got a fun name, but you know what? He's got the money and he's goth. I like goth people. And then also because a memory was unlocked while Nikki was talking about like Dragon Age and stuff like that. Um, my first Fallout game was Fallout 4, and just that character creation. Like, I dated the robot. I dated Nick Valentine, and I remember because I tried also to date. There was a specific robot in one of the towns that it's this like really voluptuous robot. Like, they make it specifically so that way it's a female identifying robot.
It is
And
Ada from Good Neighbor, I think. She sells
yes,
weapons.
Giving-
yes.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm trans. I like identify as a trans like robot. And I was like, wait a minute. This is fierce. I was like, I want to be friends with her while dating Nick. And then like have this whole like fun like robotic army uprising that's just queer. I bring all of like the synth people out from hiding, and I'm like, we are rising up against this like oppressive, clean like government in this nuclear fallout wasteland. And then I remember also having Nick build like little traps and then like putting these people through gauntlets till they like, you know, died, because I made sure that they all died because I don't like them.
All right.
No,
You're revealing that much about you. Ruby, is there anything you want to add in regards to games? Because you kind of tagged on from the tech thing. I'm just wondering if there's anything.
Yeah. In the realm of the fighting game, surprisingly enough, the actual WWE was kind of a sexual awakening for me, and then the games kind of helped in both aspects as far as like identity and sexuality. Because in one of the SmackDown versus Raw games, you could actually create your own wrestler, and you could create either like a male wrestler or a female wrestler, but you could take attributes and like even the way that they would like walk up to the stage, not the stage. This is how queer I am. The ring. You could like select the music. You could select like the color of like the pyro or like literally anything, their outfit and all of that stuff. So you could literally have like a male presenting wrestler doing like the entrance of like a diva, one of the female wrestlers, or like their music, or even, you know, importing your own music if you were feeling fancy. But yeah, that was one that I was actually thinking about this panel, and I was like, oh yeah, that game series totally was that in a way for me, because it's things that you don't really realize in that moment, but like looking back, you're like, oh yeah, that was definitely a part of like my identity and like my, you know, becoming who I am, I guess, in a way. Do we want to get into like more like recent or like / better types of representation / finding more accurate representation in gaming?
I mean, an easy one is like Sims. I mean, it all goes full circle back into the
Yeah.
Sims, and how they've just recently added the pronouns feature.
Yes.
They started restricting kind of like gender norms and allowing there to be a lot more. I don't know, what would you like kind of say, because it's like including the things like not Ian while standing up, or you can opt to do that as well for any character. There's so many restrictions that have been taken away from The Sims now just to make it more diverse and accessible. I mean, yeah, sure, an easy one to throw that onto is the one who does a lot of Sims content on your channel. So if you want to take it away and get into kind of the representation in The Sims and how that kind of is
Yeah.
monumental.
It is, but I will say it was definitely pushed by CC creators like Ebonics, Ex Mirror Mirror, making literal like skin color packs because for black and brown people, it was literally this just weird ashy gray alien shades. No offense if that's your shade, but like the rest of us are not represented at all. And like the hairstyles, like I mean, The Sims has gotten a lot better, but it still took. They only recently added like bonnets and do rags. It's like, come on, black people have been wearing that shit for a long time. But that definitely was something early on that I was like, thanks to CC, like I'm a big CC girl, custom content. I've always been able to, create myself. But like starting out in the early versions, she wasn't quite accurate, I will say that.
There was a bit of crunch there, let's say.
Yeah, there was crunch. There was crunch.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm huge on SimCC. I constantly nag Nikki to download it consistently. She's yet to,
Not the
but I'm
call
trying to push her
out.
towards it.
I
You're
have
no
some.
CC? Oh,
I'm not like I play The Sims like sometimes, but I haven't played it like a ton, so I don't have like much CC. I do a regular thing where I make my friends in The Sims and then I make them fight to the death. And Passion's been on me about getting CC to make them more accurate. I've just been doing it with the like base
I
game.
refuse to be a part of it unless
I
there
told
is
you to
CC
make a
involved.
sim of
But I
yourself
don't
and
want to
just
be
send
the
me
only one
CC.
who just looks like I just look like a sore thumb amongst like all this like Max's match, and I'm just like an alpha girly. Like it's just gonna,
oh.
it's not gonna look cute. But yeah, CC, it's fantastic that you bring up that because I constantly remember looking on Tumblr and seeing a Bonix popping up and being like, why isn't that in my game? Because that was an
Yeah.
immediate thing of just, why am I seeing all of these skin tones that just don't look anything like it? And I will say, there has been an improvement on the skin tones, but even then I've seen like POC complain about it, rightfully, because it's not completely perfect. And all they have to do is honestly just contact the CC creators who are making positive representation, throwing over, a juicy bit of money and
Mhm.
getting them on board and on the team and creating for them because they're making monumental things that should already be. Well, I don't even want to call it monumental because it's just, it should be in the game. It should
Yeah.
be that representation, whether that be for queer folk, like BIPOC folk, like anybody. And it's just surprising, as positively as we talk about The Sims, there's still a lot of critiques that can be made.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even in the pronoun side of things, like they're still they still only added they them, right? So there's still a lot of room to like improve on that front, or even I've seen people talk about how they had to like find ways to like trick the system, unless I'm thinking of a different game, into like saying like she her for certain occasions and they them for other occasions and stuff like that. So it's still a thing that like, even if it's not for The Sims, because I could be confusing this specific thing
I think
with
you
a
can
different
customize it.
game.
There is like a customized thing for, I think I'm correct by saying that, where you can like pick your pronouns and you just type in what you want per how they refer to you. So there is a little bit of customization,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
you kind of have to go into that additional bit in order to do it in what pronouns you want it exclaimed as.
Yeah.
But just, I don't know. I always feel like with The Sims, as much as we put this on as like cool pedestal, there is still a lot to be done with it. And I feel like it's always going to be that way because there's just, I don't know, they always feel like a little bit behind. And I
I
need
feel
them to
like
like pick
I
it
feel
up.
like you are right, but I think it's also an understanding that I think we're at a point now where people can experiment a lot more with gender, like, and we have the internet, a huge resource of knowledge and information that is ever expanding. So I think people are always going to have to be catched up with that kind of thing. The main thing to me is that, see, as long as they're trying, and you can always tell when someone's actively trying to do better. To me personally, if someone's actively trying to do better, that in itself speaks a lot to me personally.
Yeah, for sure. And I do say that they do show a lot of a push towards thing, despite EA's, stances on some
Oh,
things. And let us not go on about the whole like trans thing and not being able to have an opinion on those things as the company, despite owning The Sims and having so much representation in it, especially during Pride Month when they pick it up and throw it in. But I do say that they do try, and I approve of that. And, at least the effort's there. I think another thing we can go on to is while we were talking about character creation, we didn't exactly touch on kind of monumental games in terms of um, were there any character creations that you can specifically think about that really grabbed you? And that can be MMORPGs, it can be online kind of element of things. I know for me, Club Penguin was a big one. I know that was only a little penguin game, but believe me, I clawed to be able to have the membership on it. I clawed to be able to even have like the little freebies that came with the plushies that came around 2007, 2008 when Disney acquired it. And I just constantly remember trying to get the freebie items just so she could be a little bit girly. That I wasn't walking around with the default items or the penguin skin and nothing else. Um, and even though the models themselves look really crunchy until you clicked on the penguin, I just remember just celebrating like my femininity as a kid before I even understood my transness. And I just knew that I was a closeted little gay boy at the time and just being like, oh, that's really cute. Oh, wait, that tiara, if I get that many tickets, I can get that. Okay. So I remember Club Penguin being that one for me. And also PlayStation Home, which was a free to play kind of like MMO situation. It was pre-installed on the PS3, so most people didn't even pick it up because it was just that kind of like pre-installed on the XMB. And I remember just downloading it one day and getting into it and just being like, I don't really get it. I don't get it. Why am I just this like man walking around in this open environment? There's other people online and it's just like I'm waving to them or dancing in front of them. Until I then logged on another day and said, let me try the female customization. And then from there, I'm sure you hear about the stories as we go on because there's a lot of stories I can tell with PlayStation Home. But if there's a specific kind of character creation that anybody remembers kind of touching base, whether it be for, gender identity or whether it be for sexuality, if there was a specific one that you remember kind of turning up the sliders and feeling a little tingly here and there, feel free to pipe in.
IMVU. Did anyone ever play that?
Malware.
Yeah, you unlocked
Yeah.
my memory.
It
Yeah,
gave me the
I feel like the people who were into IMVU as kids are the people who got into Second Life as teens. That was me. And I don't know. I just remember like I would spin the little wheels, do everything I could to get the free IMVU money because I wasn't putting real money into it, and I get little characters and I feel like this is a consistent thing for me in a lot of games while discovering identity was I would always want like a female character or a girl character and a boy character at the time. And I would play. Sometimes I'd be feeling like my oats and play the girl character, and I'd make her real pretty and big boobs. And I feel like growing up, I realized that I that energy that I had for those female characters in the video games or the character creations, I kind of channeled into Nicki Mirage, and then and then the boy characters were just like these people that were like way hotter than me out of drag, and I was like, let me feel like a man. But and I guess that kind of translated more, I guess, into my queerness and gayness, and I guess sexual energy growing up. So,
You
but I am
just
to you with one.
uh Yeah, you just unlocked like a memory for me. Like I always saw those ads as I was playing like those crunchy flash dress 'em up games. Like I would make sure nobody
Mhm.
was home because it was like all of those were like pink and obviously very like girly. And I would always like play those in secret and yeah, get that little tingle as Passion said. Yeah, just that little touch of femininity that I never really understood what that meant until like the terms such as like gender non-conforming, and then of course nowadays we use the term non gender non-binary, that I didn't understand for the longest time because I was like, well, sometimes I don't mind playing as the male characters, and sometimes I prefer the male character because they have an interesting design or their outfit is cool, or and sometimes I prefer the female character. And so, what does that mean? So it was always kind of unfortunately, it wasn't like the best experience for me because it only brought more confusion to me more than like necessarily like, oh yeah, this is me, because I was like, is this me? Like, because like yesterday I wanted to create a female character, so what does that mean? So it was always a bit like confusing and overwhelming in that aspect. Surprisingly, this isn't really much of a character creator, but Animal Crossing for me, when I picked up New Horizons, yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
right. I it was, to me, it just came so natural to just like do whatever you wanted, because that game, your character is just a villager. Like, they're not gendered in any way, so you can literally have any hairstyle, any outfit, and literally change at any moment, and it doesn't matter, and nobody treats you any differently, and nobody there isn't like this weird gendered energy around it, which I find super cool, and I wish I had that growing up, because I could, I mean, obviously I would still have that thing of like, oh, let me get the long hair, only when nobody's around my room or anything of the sort. But yeah, it was so cool to see that you could just like literally do whatever you want, whether it was for fun or because you wanted to feel your oats in a particular way that day or anything like that. So for me, Animal Crossing was unfortunately very recent, but it's still good to see that, especially as a game targeted towards children and stuff like that. It's cool to see that they do have that kind of representation where they can just literally do whatever they want and be themselves.
Yeah. Diana?
Oh, so I kind of want to add on to Little Flash Game Days, because that was another memory unlocked. I feel like there should be like a little like counter of all the times we have a memory unlocked.
Just giving that to
Um,
Raven, just being like,
I actually remember when I was really young playing the Lizzie McGuire Disney Channel game. There was two specifically. It was the one where you can paint her nails and you do like this all nail art. And I was like, let me play this. And then I would hear someone coming like, crap, gotta delete it, like close the tab. And then it would take 5 years because it's on the AOL dial-up, so it's like shutting down, and then it's just frozen there for like 5 minutes. Like, no, that and the like dress-up game, because you could pick the different characters. I always liked like changing up the clothes and the style of being like, oh, I think she would look good in this, and like I remember being mad that I couldn't like grab some of like from the boys section of clothing that they had coded in the game, because I was like, but she would look cute with this like top and these pants, or like this shirt and then like a skirt. Like, why can't I do that? And I was like, I want to incorporate that, and I want to be able to express myself like that a lot of the times, and to kind of bring that into like more modern aspects. Um, Recently with like Saints Row. I know Passion just did a whole like character creation stream with that recently. If you aren't following Passion's Planet on Twitch.tv, go ahead and do that right now.
exactly. And I told her, I said, ma'am, no. Saints Row, absolutely monumental. Like, they've only just gone kind of like with a non-gendered approach to the recent games. But Saints Row 2 having like the first kind of like playable female like Saints character was huge to me. I remember playing that with my sister on the PS3, and we would kind of like take turns kind of like playing through. Every time she would take over, because she's a lesbian, and it's kind of like very masculine, she would like put her in the flannels immediately as I took over. I don't even think I was out at the time. I used to take over, immediately go to the leather and lace shop, put her in this corset, like a snatch, like her tits all together. I'd go into the customization, bump the tit ratio back up. Like, Saints is incredible, and I can't wait to see what they do with the upcoming one, because they're just scrapping gender. Did you have anything else to add to kind of Saints before I took it from your hands there?
Honestly, I think you pretty much said it all. Like, that was perfect.
Okay, all right. Luke.
I've actually been thinking, did anyone ever play Dragon Age Inquisition, the most recent one?
I have not, but I've seen people play it.
Right. So that's my most recent one I can think of, because I'm a non-binary person. I'm very comfortable in being a mask presenting person. You don't have to be androgynous to be non-binary, the usual fun start. But when you first start understanding these aspects of yourself, you do feel that kind of twinging inside, or like, maybe I should be presenting a bit more androgynously. And I remember feeling that at the time when Dragon Age Inquisition came out, and Dragon Age Inquisition was the first game I remember playing where you got like nice makeup on your guy characters, because let's be honest, 9 times out of 10 they just look bad. But I remember spending the time in Dragon Age Inquisition on this masculine character, same similar beard that I have, and spending ages in her eyeshadow, and I'm like, my character looks incredible. So I really enjoyed that. And kind of going back to like a game that kind of spoke to me when I was younger is it's gonna be a strange one, I think, for most people. Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda, because in Gerudo Valley, it's all women. It's all women in there, but they're not your typical, especially at that time. They're not like, I don't know, like they're all warrior women. Like, it's all incredible. There are these big, strong warrior women, and I remember looking at them and being like, I want to be one of them. They're really cool. So I was like even from an early age, I didn't quite realize it at the time, but it's something I always really admired, was strength regardless of gender, and I think it's something that I still quite do. Like, I think it's really cute at the time.
I also wanted to quickly add, because you mentioned the Flash games and so did Ruby. Did any of y'all ever play Stardoll?
Oh my god, yes, obsessed.
Okay, when you
Yes.
used to like dress up like Vanessa Hudgens and like
Yeah,
Ashley
all the
Tisdale.
celebs.
Oh my
Yeah,
god, like
yeah. I was obsessed with
High School
Paris.
Musical days.
Oh
Oh.
yeah, yeah. That unlocked my memory when you mentioned the dress-up games. That was something I was addicted to.
Yeah, Stardoll, and just the crunchy sites I used to go on that was definitely like filled with that IMVU malware that used to pop up.
Yeah.
Like, you would click on it, you would pick girly dress-up games, and you'd scroll through, maybe go on the second page, because like, I've played all those ones. You click on it, and then immediately up pops up like Janice 42 looking for a fuck. Like,
Yeah.
Literally
like,
one wrong
IMVU.
click.
Yeah, and IMVU was very adult. And I remember I also tried Habbo Hotel. Did anyone play that?
I loved
Yeah,
Habbo
yes.
Hotel. Yes.
But wasn't
Yes.
it filthy? It was
Yeah,
just
oh,
It was
like
disgusting. Yeah.
boba. Just like and everyone's asking ASL, and it's just like it's very sketchy. But I used to love
Yeah.
like getting a character, finding a cute fit, and going to like the modeling competitions.
Mhm.
And they all want to see the exact same aesthetic, but I just go there to win and then sit behind a gate and just feel my oats. And it was just really, that memory is recently unlocked for me, and I was kind of scarred because I was just like, I could have been talking to anyone and just,
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
it's not cute, but it was like, I did love the character creation there. It's like an early memory.
that's another thing, because you say about talking to anyone, and that's an easy like segue of going into online dating.
Ooh.
I can immediately touch on that with PlayStation Home. I remember being my little girly. Once I got her together, I used to beg my parents for PlayStation Network cards for the PS3 every Christmas, every birthday. Can I get a £20 network card? Can I get a £20 network card? And I would get them every time, because it was just like an easy stocking filler or something like that. And every time, instead of buying a game from the PlayStation Store, I would run onto PlayStation Home, go to the news section. If it was Christmas, I'd get the seasonal outfits. And you know what? I would pick up that skanky, nasty little like skirt and dress that I could walk around and immediately walk out being like, ho, 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 everyone. Immediately, like a default man would run up, hi, 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 just like on repeat. And you know what I used to do, girl? I used to send out friend requests, send a couple PMs. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes I got a little PlayStation Network gift card sent to me
Ooh.
after, and that's all just talk. And then Club Penguin is another one. Going on the pizza parlor dates, just going in there, flashing the little pizza emoji until someone came over. Someone would be like, "Are you single? Are you alone? Do you want to go on a date?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, let me go to my igloo real quick. Go in there, pick the outfit, come back to the pizza parlor. He'd be in a suit too." And I'd walk in, I'd be like, "Yes, let's do it." And the people role playing as the waitresses would come over. What would you like to order? And all of this. And if it all went well, we'd go back to the igloo, and and we would sit our Club Penguins like on top of each other and do like, I think it was like a smiley face and then like a oh place and just like spam it over and over. And then eventually, I guess the next day you would like unfriend them because
And forget they exist.
that was that.
Wait.
So
Believe.
nothing's changed from IRL.
Oh,
Did
that's
anybody
good.
else have a lovely experience?
That was exactly my Habbo Hotel. That's exactly it.
I
Find a
was
boy,
my Habbo Hotel was the same.
and you could lie down on beds as well. So you'd be
Mhm.
like, and
Yeah.
you could like spell. You couldn't curse. It would swap curse words with bobber. So you'd like, I smack my bubba against your bubba. Clap, clap. You know.
I guess my first experience then with like a sort of cyber situation like that would be more in like I played Guild Wars 1 a lot. That was my MMO growing up. And sometimes I would make like a female ritualist who was like the most curvy, big boob hippie woman, and I would take off all my clothes to get in my underwear, and I would dance in the center of a town until a man came over to me, and I was like, "You want to go outside?" And then I would just make my character like kneel in front of him, and he would like walk up to my face.
That was the same on PlayStation Home. I would kneel. Like I would just stand there. The default man would be there, and I just would kneel. And then
Yeah,
I'd hit PM
I would sit or whatever, and he would like stand in front of my face, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's like I essentially suck your."
I didn't type that.
Mind you, well, I didn't type that. But I think it would. It was a lot, and I'm like, I was like 14 years old doing this.
Same.
In retrospect, but I did get some in-game gold sometimes from it. So
Exactly, there was profit, and we found our
Yeah.
identities in gaming.
Yeah, I did that on RuneScape too. Did anyone play that?
buying
I think
GF.
I think I like convinced the boy to like drop all his armor and shit, and I snatched it up, and then I logged out of that game.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I love that.
RuneScape was
but-
bad for that. You'd everyone out the front bit looking for GF. It was so funny.
Help me.
For money.
I had a girlfriend in Habbo Hotel for like 5 minutes once, and then I didn't have any free couches for her, and she dumped me. I was like, I think I was like 11.
She was a girl boss. She was before
Yeah, she was. No, really, no, she was.
So like the Club Penguin thing reminded me of like my whole era of like let me con people so I can get free puffles. I had like a little puffle farm in my igloo. I had the premium subscription, but I knew people for at the time. I was like 11. I was like, let me get this nasty little like the pigtail wig, and I would put
not the one that looked like Britney and Baby One More Time, because I used to use that as like a little cosplay outfit for that.
Yeah.
Nasty.
I would put that one on because they didn't have like good hair until like I got the premium one, and I got this really long blonde wig. And when I got that, I was like, let me get this little like sequin gown and go to the pizza parlor. And I'd remember I'd find someone and I'd be like, hey, like I'd do like the winky face, and they'd be like the winky face back. And it's the whole thing of going back to the igloo, but I would go to their igloo. And I remember there was one time I went into this person's igloo, and they're like, I just watched their penguins strip their clothing, and my penguin was walking around the house, and I was like, no, and because I was like too poor, and they came to my igloo, and they were like, oh wow, you're rich, BB, and I was like, I just remember typing asterisk moans asterisk. I just said
I completely remember the stripping off the clothes thing because I would used to do it bit by bit, and sometimes I would accidentally like click the wig, and I'd be like, oh, put it back on.
Not that.
Before they caught like the penguin without the wig. But yeah, we used to suffer on Club Penguin with the freebie shit until you got the premium, but it didn't get good until just after Disney acquired it. And then they got like the drag wigs and everything else. They would never look good on the actual model, but when you clicked on that profile, you'd hope that like one of the male penguins would be like, oh, hi baby, and send you a friend request.
yeah.
But I can't believe that children. There's a reason why Disney started that. I don't like. I understand it now. I'm
Yeah.
sad about it. I understand it, and I'm sorry for contributing to the issue.
listen, sometimes you have to go to the nightclub and you're like, you don't even go in like the actual like nightclub clothing. You go in like the bikini, the green bikini with like the frilly like pants. And you're just like, hey, baby. And you're just like,
Uh,
Oh
no,
wow.
you're doing the dance.
Please.
you're just like, and
Uh,
you get somehow someone walks up to you and they're like, I like you. You want to be my GF? And then you're like, follow me to the corner. And you're just on top of each other in the corner dancing.
why do I feel like this has happened recently for you? The exact detail and everything else. I'm like, Diana.
I used to be a Club Penguin YouTuber, and
Same.
you see some interesting things.
I'm not even going to go into that because some of the videos are up and I cannot delete them. And I've never wanted to talk about it. So I guess now people can like
People
scourge
now
through
know
it. You won't be able to
exist.
find them, but they are so specific. I found them one nasty evening and I said, no, I refused. Ruby, is there anything for you in terms of online dating or any
Not
sort of
really. I wish I was
anything?
that brave growing up. I don't know if we could describe it as brave now, but looking back, I guess, you know. But no, I not really. I was always like very afraid of interacting with other people. My parents instilled like the fear of God by like the internet is dangerous. You never know who you're gonna talk to, all that stuff. Um, so yeah, I was always like very careful with that. I also only mainly played single player stuff as well, so like I never really got into like I got into a couple MMOs, but I would play them by myself. So like it was just like that type of moment for me. But yeah, it was nice hearing all of y'all's stories though. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh okay, y'all were getting down.
Okay, another question would be, did you find it hard kind of finding the representation that you needed as a kid? I know we've touched on a heap of games while discussing all of this, but was there any moment where is there any essence of representation or identity that you currently have that maybe it's a bit more easier to find now and it was a struggle and a half back then? Because I know for me there was little to like no trans representation, and I know if that was more prominent, I definitely would have been like, oh, hang on a minute, let me get that estrogen real quick as a kid, because I know that would have made a heap of a difference. There were a couple characters where I was just kind of like, is she?
Hmm.
But then that would peak at maybe like Doris in Shrek 2, and they never bother putting her in the games, so I can't claim it as a video game. But yeah, are there any games that you can kind of think of that you were kind of like, that is a struggle to find representation? Or just like, is there any representation period that you found hard to find in games, maybe now or back then?
Ooh. I think like we obviously have way more now. Like we're still like at the very beginning stages, I feel. But when Tell Me Why came out, that was like a really big one for me. Because obviously the protagonist is a trans character. And obviously you can also be a gay trans man in that game. So you can, there's a lot of like layers of queerness to it that made me just very happy to experience, because it was also kind of like healing that lack of representation from back then. Yeah, just in general, games like that, Life is Strange. Obviously, there's a lot of visual novels that are very queer centric, and it would have made such a big difference if I had that growing up. Because yeah, I'm literally like struggling to think of like anything that was like remotely that I would think like, yeah, that was totally representation. Like I feel like we had to make our own, you know what I mean? Like we would play as
Yeah.
like a female character and be like, sure, this is close enough because she's not wearing a skirt, she's wearing shorts, so I'm good. Yeah, sure, close enough.
I think a lot of people, a lot of queer people specifically, are very good at picking apart any tiny bit in a video game that you think might be queer and just clinging to it for dear life. Like we've all had that. Like even most recently, as like Breath of the Wild, when you have to get into again Zelda, whatever, you try to get into like the Gerudo City, you have to dress up as a woman when Link is canonically a man. So even from wee bits like that, I was like, hey, Link's non-binary, like just daffy things like that, because you do. That's the only options you have. You don't have proper representation in video games.
I guess one thing that is still lacking even today in video game representation is the ability. I mean, it's in the new Saints Row, but is the ability to create fat characters or play as fat characters. Like, yeah, you can be like bulky, but you can't be fat. And like, I direly would like love a Pokemon game to put in different body types for their kids. Yes, they're making progress in terms of representation as your player character in Pokemon, but you still can't be fat, and you still have to be a little skinny little kid. And as a fat little kid, I would have loved to be able to see myself in a Pokemon game, as something other than the hiker. and, um, and I think that's still a big prevalent issue in a lot of game character creation is you can't be plus size. You can't be plus size. It's like either women or men or anything. You just can't. It's like it's a problem and it's lacking in a lot of video games. And I get it that you're playing games and these characters are probably athletic because they're doing all these like wild things, but it would still be nice, especially in games like say Pokemon, just be
Yeah.
able to play as like a plus size person, you know?
You're just saying that the justification is
Yeah.
like, hey, this athletic character, but you're also catching monsters and Pokeballs. You should be able to make whatever character you want. It's a fantasy
Yeah.
for a reason. Let
Yeah,
people
it's a
have that
fantasy. Like
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say in The Sims as well, as much as you can be, queer and everything, like if I wanted to be polyamorous or ethically
Mhm.
non-monogamous, all my bitches got to fight. Everyone's jealous. It's a
Yeah.
problem.
or you have to download a mod to make that
Exactly.
work.
You gotta, yeah, I have to get a mod if I want to have some, open marriages or some things. And I would love for that to come through soon and just be a kind of, hey, maybe we're fine with non-monogamy. Maybe that's fine too.
But we have communication skills. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I do love the fighting. I do, but not every day. Come on, guys.
Diana?
Honestly, like, besides just pretty much seeing larger body types being included, like, even with The Sims, like, whenever I would make myself not as a female presenting character, I'm like, why can I only make my, like, body type go this far? And, like, especially when I was a heavier person, like 2 years ago when I started The Sims, like I couldn't make myself accurately. Like I had to have this very sculpted face, and at the time, I did not. Like I had very much like very rounded face, and I the closest I could get is just trying to like move the bone structure around to try and like emulate that. And I was like, that was always something that kind of like bothered me, as well as like even in like games like GTA 5 and stuff like that. Where like you have like the plus size people are always like there's a whole billboard of like a woman trying to get a chocolate bar, and she's like falling to her death, and she's very like she's a very fat woman, like, and it's clearly obviously meant to be like ha 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 fat people. I'm like, why, like, okay, but why can't we have like something nice to go with like the comedic in that, or like the nasty and the nice, because there's both. Why are we only focusing on the bad and using it as a punchline? Why can't we have the positive of there are people like that? People that develop these games are fat people. Like they're not everybody is a skinny little twink or this athletically built person. Like
I think
It's
following on
also
from that.
Go
Sorry,
on.
go ahead.
No, go on.
I think following on from that, yeah, you're right, and I think by having these types of games where you can only be this, like you said, skinny twink character or big hunk character, not everyone wants to have that body type. People are quite comfortable, like you said, but people are comfortable being fat. That's what they want. Like, so why is this the default? Why can't you have a body slider? Like, I was very impressed yesterday with Starfield's gameplay, because when you said you wanted fat characters, Starfield has that, and I was really taken aback. I was like, it's about time that this was available. I mean, it feels like it's been talked about for such a long time. It's nice to see it actually come into action.
I was going to say, you brought up GTA. I've always been disgusted by its character creation, period. It has always made me fume. The women, I don't even want to begin. that character creation is nasty. And if they want to bring out another one, I'm not even talking about a story mode. Even just a character creation has to do better.
Yeah.
The fact that it's so bare bones, like Saints shows it up heaps, and I'm saying that as a Saints stan, of course. But let me just say that it's always made me fume because you said about the fat characters. You walk around, there's constantly fat characters walking around in GTA. Yeah, they're stumbling. Yeah, they're doing this, that, and the other, all the stereotypes. But you can't even make that in the character creation for online. It's
yeah,
just
it's weird. You gotta
it makes
use
me
like two
fume.
parents as well to like morph a
Mm.
face. It's so weird. It's so bad. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
good.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like why I stopped playing GTA Online. I was like, well, look cute, and it
Mm.
wasn't giving.
It's giving potato like
Yeah.
when it looks pretty.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's just I don't know why. I mean, I understand it. It's Rockstar, and I know that their representation is always going to lack. They've only just taken the T-Slur out of the recent release for the PS5, so I know that it's going to take a while for them to even bother. But yeah, Ruby, is there anything you have to add?
Yeah, I was gonna add that. I saw people like celebrating on my timeline, like, oh my god, they took a transphobic like storyline out of the game, and I was like, why was it there to begin with in a game that came out like not that long ago? But other than that, I feel like in general, not we, because we're not the ones making games, but people making games need to stop having queer coded villains, because like of course we love, like, the reason the queer people love villains a lot of the times is because they're queer coded, but we don't love the fact that we're constantly portrayed as the villain, or we're constantly the ones like, oh, they're very androgynous, therefore they're up to something, they're scheming, like all of that fun stuff for us, of course, but like obviously in the real world, not as fun. But it's like, as a Final Fantasy stan, I have to address this, of course, because all of the people that were like, yes, icon, I was like, oh, they're the villain. Like Sephiroth, super long, luscious, beautiful hair, the villain, an absolute horrible person. Like for Final Fantasy IX, the main villain is like, you're like, okay, like wearing a crop, like being so dramatic, being amazing, and then you're like, oh, but they're like literally a horrible human being that is like causing destruction everywhere. So like, I wish that in general, we didn't constantly have like the cishet protagonists, and then the enemies were like, and the bad people were always the non-cishet white people, because I feel like that's always the case. There's always games in which like, there's barely any representation, and when there is, it's like they're the villain, or they're like a side character, or they're like y'all said, like the butt of a joke or something like that. Like I remember one of like the most recent examples for me of that was when I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. They did a lot of improvement on how they went about representing a lot of the characters, but there was still moments where like Wedge, for example, like they still included a joke or several about like him eating, and because he's the one fat character in the cast, and you're like, why does his storyline, or why does his thing have to be about him eating? Like, why does it have to be all of these things? Even Barrett, as the only black character in the cast, like, why does he have to be the one constantly raising his voice, and why does he have to be, like, just things that I feel like a lot of the times, the average person is like, oh, we're moving forward, celebration and representation, all that fun stuff. But it's like, we also can't just accept every single thing as they're giving us exactly like that. We also have to, even with the conversation that we were having with The Sims, like, yeah, they're trying, they're getting better, but like, it's still an ongoing thing. It's not like, yay, we won, okay, bye. Like, no, like, it's still an ongoing thing. And fortunately, a lot of the fan bases and a lot of like the mod communities and stuff are the ones like a lot of the times carrying these games, like giving us alternative outfits and same-sex relationships and stuff like that. And I just wish that all of that was more normalized. And with that, my rant is over. I just realized I was like ranting a lot.
I honestly
great.
feel like that the opinions given are like absolutely needed, and I think as much as we talk about this positive rep and everything else, I think there's much to be had when it comes to improvement. And we have to poke and prod these game devs just to kind of be like, hey, you she really shouldn't like include this in a game for this time. Hey, can you, adapt for this maybe for an update in the future, even if it takes months, years for that matter? Can you just work on it? I know I did complain about GTA, but I mean, it's been on console from console at this point of the same game. So they could have taken it out years ago, because I think 2013, the trans conversation was pushing. We had like that trans representation starting to happen with Laverne Cox and also Caitlyn Jenner eventually. Well, but it was starting to happen, and there was a push, and to see that still maintained in the game until someone was like, probably in Rockstar, hey, maybe let's talk about like removing it at this point. But instead of kind of, I don't know, I really want them to work on that for GTA 6. I don't want to see that representation in it. And if they're going to push to have trans characters, you know, it has to be more than just that sort of like token joke or just like that side character in one of the missions, you know?
It just reminded me of one of my favorite like JRPGs that I played in the recent like years was Persona and Persona 5. I played through Golden and I played through the base Persona 5 as well as Royal. Um and in the base Persona 5 there's like these it's like this kind of like ongoing representation of like there's these two queer people and they're basically almost kind of like portrayed as like predators in the first game with one of the main protagonists of the story like kind of like constantly being like flirty and like whatever with them and it took like years of like fighting um because that wasn't changed from localization. That was how it was originally released in um, all countries when that was imported from Japan. In Royal, they fixed it in a way by just making it seem like, oh, they just want to make this person a drag queen, but it's still then the whole they're forcing this person to do something against their will, and it's still not good representation, which is shocking because in Persona 4 Golden, this may or may not be a character spoiler. I'm not going to say who or what, but there is a whole arc of the story that's kind of like very much heavily implied that one of the characters is queer. And it's like you have this whole representation of that. The whole story is very like positive image towards like accepting yourself, that whole kind of like that whole arc of like you don't have to be this to be that, like you can be it all. And then you go to the new game, the one that everybody quotes and loves and says is the superior one, and it's like you have this really piss poor kind of representation there, and it sticks out like a sore thumb amongst all of it because it's like, well, why was this needed? It's not appropriate to just like in a random scene just throw in these two queer characters, have them be almost like predatory, and then just leave it at that and use that as like a reoccurring joke to kind of like cause like a transition for scene changes of locations rather than having just a positive interaction between probably two side characters that you could see. There are many date scenes that you go on when you're trying to romance someone. And that's another thing. You can't romance as the main protagonist um, anybody you choose. It has to specifically be the female characters. And if you try to do anything with the others, it's like, nope, sorry. And even then, one of your teammates is very flamboyant and he's very like, he's an art lover. He's very passionate about his things. And they're like, what a freak, what a weirdo, and stuff like that. And it's like, why are they taking, like, they're taking the piss out of him for being just slightly effeminate as compared to the rest of them. And that's my gripe with those games. Because as much as I love it, the overall, the whole story is amazing, but it's just those little things that I'm like, why can't we improve that? And those things only one of those things actually changed with the Ultimate Edition, which is the Royal version. And I'm just hoping that with Persona 6 that's somewhere coming up soon, they actually kind of improve that, or at least if they just don't even mention it at that point. If you're not going to make it positive, don't even include it at that point, because we're not jokes.
Absolutely. I know I mentioned FF7 remake, but in a almost kind of negative way. But to give them props where props are due, they also, in the original Final Fantasy VII, they had a scene where it was like, oh no, it's an all girls mansion. Cloud can't go in because he's a guy. Oh no, he has to get in drag. Oh no, everyone else around him laughing. And I love how they did that in the remake, in a way where they kind of he wasn't necessarily extremely excited to do it, but the way that he was introduced to drag wasn't like pushy or wasn't like uncomfortable. It was very like, express yourself, find your inner beauty kind of thing. And it was very I felt, for me, it was very magical, and it was like, okay, this is how you take a story that's outdated and you bring it to whatever year it came out in. So yeah, there is absolutely, like, y'all are right. Like, there's no excuse for, especially if it's a new game, like, why can't we just learn from the previous ones? Like, we understand, like, if we boot up a game that came out in 97 or whatever, we're like, okay, some stuff is gonna be a little weird and like whatever. But like, if you're gonna remake those games, or if you're gonna port them, or if you're gonna make new ones from that franchise, like, let's make sure that we don't repeat that. Because we just want to give you our money.
Yeah, thank you, Diana, for sharing that. Though, I mean, it's like, I feel like a genre of a game that hasn't been touched on throughout all of this. So it's just interesting that throughout even like our favorite games, there's always that one little nitpick that we'll just be like, if they ever remade this game, I really hope they just kind of like fine tweak that. I even found that playing Simpsons Hit and Run and just doing a randomizer, and one of the characters, I've never heard this line before, but because it was a randomizer, one of the characters, I think it was Krusty the Clown, just randomly spouted out something about showgirls having a penis. And it was just so nonchalant, like out of nowhere. And I was like, something like, if that is in the game, I feel like they're just gonna bring it back if they ever remake it or remaster it. Like, I fear that that's just gonna come back in some form. And it just saddens me when you sometimes revisit a game and there's just that little thing in. As old as it may be, it still just kind of hurts, and that representation, even as a kid, even as growing up, and even now when we replay them, it still hurts and it stings a bit, especially when you're streaming it and you're showing it to your community, and you kind of have to just like smile and nod, or touch on it, have a conversation with your community and discuss why that would have been like an awkward kind of like joke to kind of sit through in front of an audience, or even just playing it alone in your own time. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for this panel. Thank you for being here. One thing that I would like to like sexily do as a cute little thing is kind of give one by one, as we kind of give, like plug our stuff, kind of say anything that we have coming up when we stream, those kind of things, is that we recommend a game that has positive representation, or a game that has some sort of character creation. Just kind of touch on that too. So yeah, I think for me, it would be Little Big Planet. That is one that I wished I kind of touched on throughout this. I stand Sackboy, Sack Rights. Little Big Planet was that game for me when I first got my PS3. The fact that I can make a Sack girl, dress him up and whatever, and just do, honestly, like that character creation. I could go on a tangent for it, but like a whole stream, believe me. I love that you can just do anything on that and add any materials, any costumes, add stickers to your outfit, add makeup, just do anything. So that was monumental for me. And I would also say that I'm Passion's Planet, otherwise known as Passion. I'm a trans variety streamer. I do a lot of Y2K games. We do a lot of early 2000s. Think like Scooby-Doo, SpongeBob, any sort of licensed game. I'm all for it, especially if it's shovelware. I rebuke that term and I dig it back up. I will happily take out shovel. And yeah, feel free to rock around if you like that sort of content. And I stream 3 times a week on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Although if you're in EU or UK, that is Wednesday, that is Friday, and that is Sunday, because I stream at 1:30 a.m. But yeah, Ruby? feel free to plug yourself, co-host.
Yes. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us. This was a lovely panel. Thank you so much for that. I stream 3, sometimes 4 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and sometimes a bonus weekend moment. I do a variety of things on my channel. I do retrospectives, I do first playthroughs, I do first looks into new games or indies or anything of the sort, with a little demo on the side as well. Coming up, I'm going to be having some charity live streams coming up, and just general variety, chaotic vibes. That type of moment of like you decide on what you're going to do, like while you're setting up the stream, kind of thing. That's what you can expect from me, which is the unexpected. What about you, Nikki?
Hi, my name is Nikki Mirage again, and I stream on twitch.tv/Queen Nikki Mirage. I stream 3 days between Monday and Thursday. I don't know which those 3 days are going to be every week, but it's somewhere in there. And usually I do drag 2 of those days. I stream a lot of variety horror, and I guess a recommendation for a game that has fairly good representation and character creation that I still play. It's a game from 2012, but it's still out. It's an MMO. It's Guild Wars 2. They're constantly, with every new expansion pack, adding more representation into their character creation, and there are queer main characters in that MMO, and I guess that's my recommendation, because most of the other games I play don't have character creators because they're horror games. So if that's my one I play that still has a character creator. And I hope to see you sometime.
Yes, I forgot to mention a game as a recommendation. I already mentioned it earlier, Animal Crossing. I feel like the new one just lets you be whoever you feel like being that day, or whoever you truly are 24/7. It's a very also safe space to experiment with identity and with gender expression. So I would definitely recommend that one.
Cool. And then we'll just go on to Luke, and then we'll work our way around again.
Hello again. My name is Luke. I am at twitch.tv/Luke Boogie. You can find me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1:30 UK time. And I'm pretty much a variety streamer, but I'm going through like a Stardew phase right now, which I'm actually really enjoying. I've not played it before. It came out like 2016. Fun thing that's happening with me this Sunday, I will be on the front page of Twitch between 1 and 3, if I remember correctly. I'll double check that because I could be lying. And the game that I could recommend, but think about this, because loads. But I think I'm going to stick with Stardew, because it came out in 2016, and it's still a game where you can have same-sex relationships. Like, in 2016, that was not as common back then, so that still kind of brings me a wee bit of joy from like such a cute little game. So it's nice.
Okay, sweet. Diana.
Well, my name is Miss Diana Hole. You can find me over at twitch.tv/Miss Diana Hole. I stream once a week. Throw a dart at the board. That's probably a day I might be streaming at this point. And if I had to recommend any game, I would actually recommend Fallout 4 specifically, just because their character creation is very extensive and is what pulled me in when I first saw it. And just it doesn't matter who you romance. You can romance any character that you would like, as well as just having this whole freedom of like expression that I wouldn't expect from a AAA Bethesda game, especially around the time that it came out. So I was very surprised, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was very fun. So I'd recommend that.
Okay, sexy. J-Town, feel free to plug yourself, talk about your favorite game, whatever.
Cool. So I'm Jtown Holla, twitch.tv/Jtown Holla. I also go by Jess too. I do stream Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. I'm on a tiny break right now because my sister's visiting me, but I will be back soon, I promise. And we kind of mostly play The Sims, but also a scary game on Mondays, and then like some community games here and there. But it's mostly just us chatting shit and just like talking about sex and celebrity gossip and, just mess, basically. It's a lovely place. I've made some really amazing friends on Twitch. And then a game that I would plug would be The Sims, surprise, surprise, but it's with CC. One of my specialities is trying to create people, like their likeness, as close as possible. I do it with community members and also celebs. The last one I did was Lizzo. I will say, even with CC, some of the phrase structure I can get quite spot on because, as you guys touched on, even with CC being plus size, you can't get all the curves and swerves exactly where you need them. But I think I did pretty good. So yeah, I would say The Sims with lots and lots of CC. It's really
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Again, thank you so much for being here. I also forgot something, so Ruby, we're on the same boat there. I do have a bunch of fun events coming up that are unannounced. A couple sexy one that will be happening next week, which I'm really, really psyched for. It's my baby, it's my passion project, no pun intended. But I do this every year. I put together a sexy little event that's a mixture of DJs and drag. And let me just say that you're in for a ride. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, thank you again for being a part of this panel. This was Be Who I Want to Be, Find an Identity in Gaming. See you soon.